Hi, my name is Dan Vito and I'm at Fireborn Studios here, and I'm going to show you how to load a bisque today. And the reason I'm making this video is that I have a number of students who I hope are going to be going out on their own and setting up their own studio, and this might prove helpful to them. The first thing that I'm going to do is show you how to stack your shelves. So this plywood disc represents the bottom of the kiln, and the next shelf is going to go above it. And when you have a solid shelf that's just one piece, as opposed to a shelf that is half shelves, you always use 3 posts. 1, 2, 3, spaced in thirds, and that will ensure that the second shelf sits level and doesn't rock, because when there's only 3, it will always be solid and not rock. If you use 4 posts and they're not precisely the same height, this one's a little bit longer, then the shelf will always teeter. And it is prone to breakage because when you put 4 more posts here, these 2 are going to be bending the shelf. And the next shelf is going to be arranged so that the posts for it are directly over the posts below, like so. That way the weight from this post is transferred directly to that post. You don't want to arrange it like this, where the posts are off center of the post below, because there's nothing supporting here and here, and again, this can cause your shelf to break. So always get the posts over the post below. One thing I did to make this easier for me is I took some iron oxide and I painted a stripe up the side of my kiln, 3 stripes, so I know exactly where to put my posts, because once you get the shelf on, you can't see them anymore, and you have to grope around with your fingers to find them. Okay, so that's how to arrange shelves when you use a single piece shelf. Now, what about half shelves? What do you do there? Well, let's check it out. So these are the shelves that I use in my larger kiln, which is the 1227. And the 1227 means that there are 12 bricks around the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and from floor to the top is 27 inches on the inside. Now, with this kind of arrangement, if this is the bottom of the kiln, I use only 4 posts. I put 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here, and the shelves always line up like the ones below. The shelf goes here, they share the post, like so. That ensures that it's level and that each shelf is only on 3 posts. So this shelf here is 1, 2, 3. It's supported by 3, just like I showed you with, with the other shelves. You want 3 supports per shelf. One thing I never do is stagger the heights of the shelves, because once you start staggering, the whole rest of the stack is going to be staggered. It has to be staggered. So staggering would look like this. I would have to use 2 more posts, and it takes up more space, so I lose room in the kiln. It requires me to own more posts. And now I'm never going to get them to the same height, so the next shelf is going to be uneven. And there's no advantage to this. Your electric kiln can give you even heat when you deck. So that's what I recommend. Just deck the whole thing. You only need 4 posts for half shelves. The next thing to understand is the nesting process. In a glazed kiln, you know that the pots can't touch and you can't have any glaze on the bottom or they'll fuse to the shelf. But in a bisque kiln, the pots can touch. And you can pack them as tight as you want. Just keep about 3/4 of an inch to an inch between the edge of the pots on the outside and the wall of the kiln. Okay, so I'm going to make some nests here. And I want to do this as efficiently as possible so I can get as many pots as I can in the kiln. So looking at this collection, can I put this in here? No, because this is hitting right here and it's going to crack the top of that pot. When you nest, the pot needs to sit on the one below. The foot of the pot above needs to be on the foot of the pot below. How about these two? Okay, that's good because this foot is inside that foot and it's resting on the very bottom of this pot. So that's good. What about this in here? Yes, plenty of room here. It's not touching that edge, so that's good. What about this in here? Let's see. Okay, that's good too, because there's space all around here, and the bottom of this is on the bottom of that. This goes back here. What about this in here? Okay, that looks like it's working. What about this here and this there? Okay, that works, and there's clearance here, so that's safe. Okay, so I've got 3 nests going. What about this in here? Not quite. But I could probably get that in there, and maybe this in here, and maybe that there. And the question is, do they stick up above my post? And this one, I think they're both okay. And if you really want to be sure, you can get a ruler and lay it across the top and see if they clear. But I can tell that both of these clear, not by much, but they're good. I'm looking for a 1/4 inch clearance, then I'm comfortable. So you continue to build your nests, and I do this outside of the kiln. I don't mess around inside the kiln with all this nesting stuff. I do it on a table, and then I take the pots and I put them in the kiln. So I always have a sample post with me when I'm building my nests, and I always take, in addition to nests of bowls, I always take a number of cylindrical pieces into the kiln with me, so that if I have some extra spaces here and there, I can tuck a mug in there. Okay, so that's how I nest. So I like all my stuff to be on wheels, makes my life easier. So here's the bottom of the kiln. Now I'm going to get my nests in there. I'm going to tuck this one up against the post like so, and this one up against that post, and I have a little bit of room here, so I would typically put some mugs in there. Maybe I'll slide this over, tuck another mug in here, maybe I'll put a 3rd mug there. Okay, so now it's starting to fill up. And I just proceed like this, tucking stuff in like so. When I have large flat things like this, I never put them on the bottom of the kiln because there's too much of an expanse against an unheated surface. I always keep flat things on the second shelf or above. And typically when I'm loading flat things like this, I don't put terribly high. So I would use a shorter post for a stack like that. And by the way, these are all bisqued already, and that's why I'm handling them the way I am. If they were greenware, I would be much more gentle with them. So now you know how to nest, how to fill the shelves with bisqueware. Now let's count pots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13 pots on half of this, so we can assume I'm going to get maybe 26 pots on this shelf, maybe more, maybe less. If I get 26 pots on a shelf and I have 4 shelves, that's 100 pots. And in my kiln, in a 1228, I can have 4 shelves plus 6 inches left over on the top of the top shelf. So it's essentially 5 times this, which would be 125 pots. In my last bisque firing, I got between 30 and 45 pots per shelf, and there were a total of 128 pots in the bisque firing. Now, in a glaze kiln, different story. You know, you're going to have these things all spread out. You're going to want them to be as close to the same height as possible. So I probably wouldn't use this size post. If I could avoid it, I would use something that's closer to that. But I may wind up using this size post. But let's just see how many pots I would get on a shelf in a glaze kiln. Not quite. Try something skinnier. Well, I want to get something in there. Okay. So if this was glaze firing, I might get one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pots on a shelf. So if I get 10 pots on a shelf compared to 25 pots, it's going to take approximately 3 glaze firings, maybe 4, to fire all the pots that I get in one bisque. 3 glaze firings, maybe 4 to 1 bisque kiln. When you're firing a kiln, you want the heat to be evenly distributed and all the pots to reach the same temperature. So when you distribute the pots in the kiln, you want to keep the amount of weight on each shelf about the same. In other words, you don't want to, pack the bottom with 25 pots and up near the top only have 4 pots on a shelf. You want to try to keep it uniform. The other thing is that most of the mass in the kiln is going to come from the weight of these shelves. So this half a shelf probably weighs more than the 25 pots that we had on this shelf when it was fully loaded. Which means that when you're arranging your shelves, you don't want to have a big space here with a 5.5 inch post, and then have like a 1 inch post and another one and a shelf and another 1 inch post and a shelf and another 1 inch post and a shelf, and then go back to this because you're going to have a tremendous amount of mass in this little section with all the 1 inch posts. So you might want to do this and then a 1 inch post and then another 5.5 inch post and then another 1 inch post and then a 5.5 and a 1, so that things are more evenly distributed and the heat can get to the whole load better. When you are bisquing, the temperature isn't that critical. You will always bisque to 06, cone 06, which is approximately 1875. And it's not critical that, they're all exactly the same temperature. What you want to do is go slow enough to burn out any organic stuff in the clay and not cause the pots to explode or crack. As long as you meet that criteria, you can go as fast as you want. And typically with the programmable digital controls on a kiln, it takes about 12 or 13 hours to do a bisque firing when you pack it as full as you possibly can, and a little bit less when it's more loosely packed. When it comes to a glaze firing, you definitely want to have your heat pretty even because you're going to be using, say, glazes that mature at cone 6, which is not 06. It's a whole different thing. It's way higher. So if your glazes are going to mature at cone 6, sometimes your kiln will have 3 thermocouples in it, and so the bottom and the middle and the top sections can be controlled individually, and if one section is a little cooler than the other, your kiln can compensate. Sometimes you only have 1 thermocouple in the middle of the kiln, which means it only knows what's going on right there in the middle, doesn't know about the top and the bottom, and if it's uneven, that's just the way it is. But you can learn your kiln, you can get to know your kiln, and you can put some physical cones throughout the kiln to get some idea of whether you have hot spots or cold spots in your kiln. And it's also going to be contingent upon the mass of the ware and the configuration of the shelves. So you can figure this all out. You can discover over time that the bottom tends to be a little cooler or the bottom tends to be a little hotter. And you'll probably notice that some of your glazes like the cooler temperature or the hotter temperature, and you can arrange accordingly. And that's what you learn as a potter is where to put the individual glazes so that they work the best. Because typically, whether it's a gas kiln or an electric kiln, there's going to be some variation in heat distribution, and also during the cooling cycle, a variation in what part of the kiln cools faster. Typically the bottom cools faster than the top, so glazes that you want to have crystals in should be on the top compared to the bottom. So in conclusion, we've discussed how to load a bisque kiln and a glaze kiln, and how to arrange your posts and your shelves and your pots to get the best results possible. Firing kilns, electric kilns, it's pretty easy, especially when you have the new electronic controls. They're essentially just a toaster, so it's not that hard.